They say a waitress can't change history. They're wrong. That night, a note written in shaking hands saved the life of an immortal king. And the price? Her very soul. 3 in the morning. Evangeline Thornwell's hands were raw and cracked, stained red from scrubbing 200 plates in water hot enough to blister. 24 years old, single mother, 3 jobs, $127 in her bank account, $284,873 in medical debt stacked like tombstones on her kitchen table. Her son was 8 years old and dying. When the Vampire King asked why she saved him, her answer would start a war. But that comes later. First, there was the cathedral. The Cathedral of Ashenmoor rose from the earth like a monument to forgotten gods. Obsidian walls stretched toward a sky choked with winter clouds, their surfaces carved with figures too ancient to name. Stained glass windows, crimson gold, deep violet, glowed from within, casting fractured light across cobblestone streets slick with December rain. Inside, the air tasted of candle wax and wine, old wine, the kind aged in silver casks for centuries, swirling with flecks that caught the light like captured stars. Evangeline adjusted her white serving apron for the 100th time. Her fingers trembled, not from cold, from exhaustion that lived in her bones, the kind sleep couldn't touch. She'd worked a double shift at the diner that morning, 4 hours at the dry cleaners in the afternoon, and now this, serving drinks to immortals who'd never known hunger. The Royal Blood Gala, 500 years of Lord Thaddeus Ravencrest's reign. The vampire aristocracy had gathered to celebrate eternity, while mortals like her moved between them like shadows, invisible until needed. She watched them from her station near the kitchen entrance, pale faces, too perfect, too still. They moved with the grace of predators who'd forgotten what it meant to hunt. Silks and velvets in shades of midnight. Jewelry that could feed her neighborhood for a year, worn casually, carelessly. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, sharp, clear, as real as the night she'd said it. Save lives, Eva, no matter whose, enemy or ally. That's what separates us from the monsters. Captain Rebecca Thornwell had died in Afghanistan in 2012, Army nurse, killed by an IED while treating wounded locals who'd been caught in crossfire. Eva had been 16, old enough to understand death, too young to understand the particular cruelty of losing the only person who'd ever truly seen her. The medal they'd sent home sat in a drawer Eva couldn't open. "You girl!" Eva's head snapped up. A vampire lord stood before her, his face angular and cold. He held an empty goblet. "More vitae, quickly." She took the crystal glass without meeting his eyes. That was the rule. Never look directly at them, never speak unless spoken to, survive the night, collect the paycheck. $300. Enough to cover Owen's medication for 1 week. 1 week. Then she'd be here again, or somewhere like here, scraping together pennies while her son's body waged a war she couldn't fight for him. Leukemia. Stage 3. The doctors spoke in percentages that made her stomach turn. Survival rates, treatment options, clinical trials that cost more than she'd earn in 5 lifetimes. Eva moved through the crowd toward the Vitae fountain, a grotesque sculpture of twisted silver where blood flowed like wine. She filled the goblet, watching the dark liquid swirl. They called it artisanal, ethically sourced. Blood given willingly by mortals in exchange for money they desperately needed. Just like everything else in this world. Desperation dressed up as choice. The cathedral's vaulted ceiling stretched impossibly high above her. Frescoes depicting vampire history covered every surface. Battles, coronations, the subjugation of mortal kingdoms, all of it painted in shades of crimson and gold, beautiful and terrible. At the head of the grand hall, on a dais of black marble, sat Lord Thaddeus Ravencrest himself. Even among immortals he commanded attention, 720 years old, though he appeared perhaps 50 in mortal terms. His face was weathered in a way that spoke of experience rather than age. Silver-white hair fell past his shoulders, bound loosely at the nape of his neck. His eyes were the color of old blood, deep crimson, that had seen too much and remembered everything. He wore black, simple, elegant. No ostentation. No crown tonight, though everyone present knew he needed none. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, quiet and absolute. But Eva saw something else, something the others seemed to miss. Weariness. It lived in the set of his shoulders, the way his gaze drifted toward the stained glass windows as if searching for something beyond them. When he thought no one was watching, his expression cracked just slightly, revealing something that looked almost like grief. The gala music swelled, a string quartet playing something classical and mournful. Conversations hummed beneath it. Laughter, the clink of crystal, the rustle of expensive fabric. Lord Thaddeus rose. Silence fell like a curtain. His voice, when he spoke, carried effortlessly through the cathedral, deep, measured. The voice of someone who'd commanded armies and negotiated treaties before most present had been born. 5 centuries, he began. Half a millennium of rule, of power, of watching empires rise and crumble like sandcastles beneath the tide. He paused. His crimson eyes swept across the assembled court. I remember the golden years, before the first great war, before trenches filled with mud and blood and boys too young to understand why they were dying. Before we learned that honor could be shelled into dust and valor could choke on poison gas. A murmur rippled through the crowd, uncomfortable. Lord Thaddeus rarely spoke of the past, certainly not with this rawness. I remember when a handshake meant something, when debts were honored and oaths were kept not because of law, but because a man's word was the measure of his soul. Eva found herself drawn closer, forgetting the goblet in her hand. There was something in his voice, something that reminded her of her mother's letters from the field, that same bone-deep exhaustion wrapped in duty. Tonight we celebrate what we've built, this kingdom, this order. But I ask you to remember, he was interrupted by applause, polite, rehearsed, the kind that said nothing and meant less. Lord Thaddeus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He sat down. Eva watched Counselor Nathaniel Draven lean close to whisper something in the king's ear. Thaddeus's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the armrest of his throne. She turned away, heart hammering for reasons she couldn't name. Something felt wrong. The air tasted different, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. The kitchen was chaos, steam and shouting and the clatter of dishes. Eva deposited the empty goblet and grabbed another tray, this one laden with canapes that cost more than her monthly rent. Caviar, gold leaf, things designed to remind mortals of their place. "Table 7 needs service," the head steward barked. "Move." Eva moved. She'd learned early how to make herself small, how to slide through crowds without disturbing them, how to be present but not seen. It was a skill born of necessity. Growing up poor taught you to take up as little space as possible. Table 7 was near the preparation chamber, a side room where servers refilled decanters and arranged platters away from noble eyes. Eva balanced her tray and pushed through the heavy wooden door. Voices stopped her cold. "Next week's audit will expose everything." Eva froze. The door had swung shut behind her, but not completely. Through the gap she could see 2 figures standing in the shadows of the preparation chamber. Both wore the deep burgundy robes of the High Council. Both had their backs to her. "The king suspects nothing?" The second voice was smooth, oiled. It sent ice down Eva's spine. "Thaddeus trusts me completely." Foolish sentiment. I've managed his accounts for 180 years. He doesn't question the numbers anymore. "And the poison?" Eva's breath caught. The first figure reached into his robes and withdrew a vial. Even from this distance, she could see its contents gleaming silver in the candlelight. Liquid mercury with a faint purple sheen. It seemed to pulse with its own malevolent light. "Veritas toxin," the figure said with something like reverence. "Rare? Expensive. Forbidden for good reason. One drop is enough to reduce an ancient vampire to ash within minutes. I have enough here to end an entire dynasty. The royal decanter? Already prepared. See? He gestured to the preparation table. There, among dozens of crystal containers, one bore the royal seal, a raven with spread wings etched into the glass. As Eva watched, paralyzed, the robed figure uncorked the vial and poured its contents into the decanter. The silver liquid swirled through the blood like oil through water, disappearing into darkness. When he drinks his customary toast at midnight, he'll be dead before he realizes what's happening. The second figure's voice held satisfaction. And you're certain the succession falls to you? The will is ironclad. I wrote it myself. 70% of corporate holdings. Full control of the Ravencrest fortune. All of it mine. Thaddeus was always too concerned with honor to pay attention to details like estate planning. What about witnesses? There will be none. The toxin works too quickly. By the time anyone realizes, it will appear he suffered a sudden deterioration. 700 years is a long life, even for our kind, and I'll be there to guide the kingdom through its grief. To a new era. To the natural order. Thaddeus has grown weak, soft. All this talk of reform and cooperation with mortals, it's an embarrassment. Vampires rule through strength, not sentiment. They turned. Eva's heart nearly stopped. The first figure was Counselor Nathaniel Draven, Chief Financial Officer, member of the High Council for nearly 2 centuries. She'd seen his portrait in the cathedral's gallery, younger then, but unmistakable. Sharp features. Silver hair swept back from a face that had forgotten warmth, eyes like chips of ice. The second figure she didn't recognize, younger, perhaps only a century old. His smile was the smile of a shark. They were walking toward the door, toward her. Eva spun and pressed herself against the wall beside the doorframe. Trey clutched to her chest so tightly the crystal glasses rattled. Her pulse thundered in her ears. If they saw her, if they knew she'd heard, the door opened. Footsteps passed within inches of where she stood. Coronation within 72 hours. Everything is arranged. Efficiency, I like it. Their voices faded as they returned to the gala hall. Eva couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her entire body shook with adrenaline and terror. She'd just witnessed a plot to assassinate a king, a vampire king, a creature who could kill her with one hand and feel nothing. The smart thing would be to forget what she'd heard, to finish her shift, collect her pay, go home to Owen, and never think about this night again. Thaddeus Ravencrest meant nothing to her. He was one of them. His kind had built an empire on mortal suffering. They took blood and called it a gift. They owned the courts, the banks, the hospitals. They made the rules that kept people like her drowning. His kind had killed her mother's unit. The official report said it was insurgent action, but Eva had seen the classified documents her mother's commanding officer had sent. Vampire mercenaries hired by corporations with interests in the region. Blood spilled for oil and profit, and the kind of politics that treated human lives like chess pieces. She should let him drink the poison, let him die, one less monster in the world. Eva closed her eyes. Her mother's face appeared. Not the official portrait they'd used at the funeral. The real one, exhausted, covered in dust and blood, kneeling beside a wounded man who'd been shooting at them an hour before, applying a tourniquet with hands that never hesitated. A tourniquet doesn't ask whose blood it stops. Her mother had died treating enemies because she believed mercy wasn't weakness, that choosing to help when you could harm, that's what made you human, not your heartbeat, your choices. Damn it. Eva's hands moved before her mind could stop them. She grabbed a napkin from her apron pocket and a pen she kept for taking orders. Her handwriting was shaky, barely legible. 4 words. 11 if you counted the warning. A lifetime if he believed her. She folded the note small enough to palm. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. This was insane. She was a waitress. A mortal. Speaking to a king without permission was forbidden. Touching him could mean death. But letting him die when she could prevent it, that would make her exactly what she'd always hated. Someone who looked away, someone who chose safety over conscience. Eva pushed through the door back into the grand hall. The music had changed, faster now, building toward midnight, toward the traditional toast when Lord Thaddeus would raise his glass and the entire court would mirror him in celebration of his reign, toward his death. She wove through the crowd with the single-mindedness of someone who'd stopped thinking and started acting, the tray of canapes forgotten, the rules forgotten, everything forgotten except the weight of the note in her palm. Lord Thaddeus sat on his throne, his expression distant. Counselor Nathaniel stood beside him, one hand resting on a silver tray bearing the royal decanter. The poisoned decanter. He was smiling, patient, a hunter watching his trap. Eva's path was blocked by a cluster of nobles. She pushed between them, drawing annoyed glares. No time for apologies, no time for subtlety. She reached the dais just as Nathaniel lifted the decanter. "Your Majesty," he purred, "the hour approaches. Shall I pour?" Thaddeus nodded absently, his gaze still fixed on the stained glass windows high above. Nathaniel began to pour, the dark blood swirling into a crystal goblet. Silver streaks caught the light for just an instant before disappearing into shadow. Eva moved. She let herself stumble, not entirely fake. Her legs felt like water. Her shoulder caught the edge of the silver tray. It tilted. The decanter teetered. The goblet fell. Crimson and silver splashed across the white marble floor, across Nathaniel's robes, across the hem of Lord Thaddeus's coat. Gasps erupted through the hall. The music stopped mid-note. Eva dropped to her knees, pulling a cloth from her apron. "Forgive me, Your Majesty." The words tumbled out in a rush, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm so clumsy, I didn't mean—" She dabbed at his coat with trembling hands, and with her other hand, hidden beneath the cloth, she pressed the folded note into his palm. His fingers closed around it instantly. Warm, solid, more human than she'd expected. Eva didn't dare look up, didn't dare meet his eyes. She just kept apologizing, kept moving, creating enough chaos and distraction to give him time to read. "Enough!" His voice cut through her panic like a blade. Not angry, quiet, but absolute. Eva froze. "Rise?" She obeyed, keeping her eyes downcast. Her entire body shook. Around them, the court murmured, scandalized, amused, waiting to see how their king would punish such brazen disrespect. Lord Thaddeus stood. In her peripheral vision, Eva saw him unfold the note beneath the table, saw him read it, saw his expression shift, subtle, controlled, but unmistakable to someone watching for it. His crimson eyes lifted, found hers. For one heartbeat, the world narrowed to just that gaze, ancient, weary, and in that moment, completely terrifyingly present. He believed her. "Counselor Nathaniel," Thaddeus said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. "It seems I am unwell, the weight of 5 centuries, perhaps." Nathaniel's smile didn't waver, but Eva saw his hand tighten on his robes. "Your Majesty, surely a momentary fatigue. The toast will wait." Thaddeus descended from the dais with measured steps. Each footfall echoed on marble. "I find myself in need of air. The gala will continue without me. Please enjoy the evening." He moved toward the side corridor, toward the private chambers reserved for the royal household. No rush, no panic, just a king exercising his prerogative to leave his own party. But as he passed Eva, his hand shot out and closed around her wrist. "You," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "come with me." Terror spiked through her. His grip was gentle but absolutely unyielding. He pulled her after him as he strode toward the corridor entrance. Guards materialized, following. Behind them, Nathaniel's voice rose sharp and clear. "Your Majesty, is that wise? A mortal servant, alone with— I will speak with her regarding tonight's incompetence." Thaddeus didn't look back. "See that we are not disturbed." They passed through an archway into a dim hallway lined with tapestries. The sounds of the gala faded behind them. Eva's pulse roared in her ears. He was going to kill her. She'd touched him without permission, assaulted him in front of his entire court. It didn't matter that she'd saved his life. Rules were rules, and she'd broken the most fundamental one. Thaddeus released her wrist and turned. His eyes blazed in the low light. "How did you know?" The question caught her off guard. I overheard, in the preparation chamber, Counselor Nathaniel and another man. They said, "Veritas toxin." "Yes." His jaw clenched. "Who else knows?" "No one. Just me. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was just getting more wine. Wrong place, wrong time." He studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent, or precisely the right place at the right time. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor, multiple sets, moving fast. Thaddeus's head snapped toward the sound. When he looked back at Eva, his expression had shifted into something harder, colder. "They're coming. Nathaniel has realized what you did. He'll spin this as a mortal attack. You assaulted the king. I fled for my safety. He'll have you executed and me confined until the poison has me too weak to resist." Eva's stomach dropped. "But you can tell them the truth. My word against my chief counselor of 180 years, a man I've trusted with every secret of my reign?" His laugh was bitter. "He's planned this well, very well." More footsteps, closer now, voices. "Seal the exits! No one leaves the cathedral." Thaddeus grabbed Eva's hand. His skin was cold. Not unpleasantly so, just different, other. "Listen carefully," he said, pulling her toward a section of wall that looked like all the others. "I don't know why you saved me. I don't know if you're brave or foolish or simply cursed with an inconvenient conscience, but you've now made yourself a target. I didn't mean, I know." His fingers found a seam in the stone, pressed. A section of wall swung inward with a grinding sound, revealing darkness beyond. "But intent means nothing now. Come with me if you want to survive." Eva stared at the passage, then at him. A vampire king, one of them, everything she'd been taught to fear and hate. Behind them, the footsteps grew thunderous. "Open in the name of the High Council." Thaddeus met her eyes. No compulsion, no magic, just a question. "Choose, quickly." Eva thought of Owen, 8 years old, lying in a hospital bed with tubes in his arms and hope dying in his eyes. If she died here, tonight, he'd have no one. Her aunt was 70 and could barely care for herself. Foster care would swallow him whole. But if she ran, if she survived, maybe she could still get home, still kiss him goodnight, still fight for one more day. She stepped into the darkness. Thaddeus followed, and the wall ground shut behind them. Blackness swallowed everything. Eva's breath came in sharp gasps that echoed off close stone walls. She couldn't see her hand in front of her face. "Take my hand," Thaddeus said from somewhere to her left. "These tunnels are older than the cathedral. Without light, you'll be lost within minutes." She reached out, found his hand, let him pull her forward. Behind them, muffled by stone, she heard the guards reaching the corridor. "Search everywhere. Find them." "Where does this lead?" Eva whispered. "Away." "That's all that matters now." They moved through absolute darkness. The air tasted of earth and age. Water dripped somewhere distant. Eva's free hand trailed along the rough stone wall, her feet stumbling over uneven ground. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would he do this? Nathaniel, you trusted him. $75 million. Thaddeus's voice was flat, defeated. "That's what I trusted him with. The Ravencrest fortune, corporate holdings, investment portfolios. I never questioned his management. I was too busy ruling, too distracted by reform efforts and treaty negotiations. I let him have access to everything. He embezzled for decades, perhaps longer, and when the mandatory audit was scheduled for next week, he knew his crimes would be exposed, so he decided to eliminate the problem at its source." A pause. "Me," Eva's mind raced. "But if you die, doesn't the fortune go to him? I have no living heirs, no family. I named Nathaniel my sole beneficiary 20 years ago, a gesture of trust, of gratitude for his loyal service." "Oh God, indeed." They walked in silence for several minutes. The passage sloped downward. The air grew colder. Ava's teeth chattered. "You're freezing," Thaddeus observed. "I'm fine." "You're mortal. These tunnels weren't designed for creatures who need warmth." He stopped walking. In the darkness, she heard fabric rustling. Then something heavy and warm settled around her shoulders. His coat. It smelled of cedar and old books and something indefinable. "Better?" Ava nodded before remembering he couldn't see her. "Yes, thank you." They continued. Ava pulled the coat tighter. It was absurd. She was fleeing through ancient tunnels with a vampire king who'd just been nearly assassinated, and she was worried about being polite. "Why did you do it?" His question surprised her. "Do what?" "Save me. You're mortal. My kind has oppressed yours for centuries. We take your blood, control your economies, enforce laws that keep you subjugated." His voice dropped. "Why risk everything to warn me?" Ava's throat tightened. "My mother was an army nurse. She died in Afghanistan. But before that, she taught me something." "What?" "That you save lives, no matter whose, enemy or ally. Because that's what separates us from the monsters." She swallowed hard. She died living by that rule. I'd be dishonoring her memory if I didn't do the same. Silence. Long enough that Eva wondered if she'd said something wrong. "Your mother," Thaddeus said finally. "What was her name?" "Captain Rebecca Thornwell." He stopped walking. His hand tightened on hers. "I knew her." Eva's heart stuttered. "What?" "Haiti, 2010, the earthquake. I was there as part of international relief efforts. Diplomatic immunity let me move through daylight hours in protective gear. Your mother was running a field hospital in the ruins, saved my diplomatic envoy when he was caught in an aftershock. Broken ribs, collapsed lung. She worked on him for 3 hours straight while the ground kept shaking." He paused. "I thanked her personally, asked what I could do to repay the debt. She said, 'Just remember, we're all human when it counts,' even though she knew I wasn't. Human, I mean." Tears burned Eva's eyes. "She never told me she met you. Probably classified. Or she didn't think it mattered. But it did. It does." His voice held something new, something that might have been respect. "You're her daughter. I see it now. The same eyes. The same stubborn refusal to walk away from someone in need." Eva couldn't speak. The weight of it all, her mother's memory, the impossible connection, the danger they were in, pressed down like a physical thing. "The debt I owed her," Thaddeus continued, "I now owe you, and I pay my debts, always." A sound echoed through the tunnel behind them, distant but unmistakable. Footsteps, multiple sets, searching. "They've found the passage," Thaddeus said grimly. "We need to move faster." He pulled her forward. The tunnel widened suddenly. Eva sensed open space around them, even in the darkness. A cavern of some kind. "There's a junction ahead," Thaddeus said. 3 paths. We'll take them." He cut off. His entire body went rigid. "What?" Eva whispered. "What's wrong?" When he spoke, his voice was hollow, empty in a way that terrified her more than anything else that night. "They have your son." Ice flooded Eva's veins. "What?" "Nathaniel. He's having his men tell me through a messenger who just caught up with us." Thaddeus's hand was shaking, actually shaking. "Owen Thornwell, 8 years old, taken from his hospital bed. If we don't surrender immediately, they'll execute him." The world tilted. Eva's knees buckled. Thaddeus caught her, held her upright, but she couldn't feel anything except the roaring in her ears. Owen, her baby, her reason for breathing. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "Evangeline." Thaddeus's hands gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me. We will get him back. I swear it on everything I am. But we cannot surrender. If we do, Nathaniel wins. Owen dies anyway. You die. I die. And he claims the throne with 300 witnesses who saw us flee together like criminals. I don't care about the throne. I care about my son." "I know. And that's why we have to keep running." His voice gentled. "Because the only way to save him is to stop Nathaniel, to expose him, to survive long enough to make this right." Eva's chest heaved. She wanted to scream, to run back, to tear through stone and steel to get to Owen. But Thaddeus was right. She knew it with the same cold clarity her mother must have felt in the field. Sometimes the only way to save someone was to make the impossible choice, to keep going when everything in you wanted to stop. "How long?" she managed. "Until midnight tomorrow. The coronation. 48 hours from now. If Nathaniel crowns himself with me declared a fugitive, Owen becomes insurance. He'll keep the boy alive as long as he thinks we might interfere." "And after?" Thaddeus didn't answer. He didn't have to. Eva pulled away from him, wiped her eyes. Her mother had faced worse odds, had saved lives while bombs fell around her, had taught Eva that strength wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward despite it. "Then we have 48 hours, she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Tell me what we need to do." In the darkness, she felt rather than saw Thaddeus's approval. "First," he said, "we get to safety. Then we plan, and then—" A sound cut him off. Not from behind them, from ahead, a grinding of stone. A shift in the air pressure. "Move!" Thaddeus grabbed her hand and ran. The ceiling exploded inward 20 feet behind them. Stone crashed down in a deafening roar. Dust choked the air. Eva ran blind, trusting Thaddeus to guide her through the chaos. They burst into another tunnel, smaller, the walls pressing close. Eva's shoulder scraped stone. Her lungs burned. "They've sealed the main routes," Thaddeus panted. Nathaniel knew these tunnels. Of course he did. He's had access to every map in the Royal Archives. "Where are we going?" "There's a chapel, old, abandoned, built before the cathedral. If we can reach it—" Another collapse. This one ahead, stone falling like thunder. They were trapped. Thaddeus pulled her into an alcove, pressed them both against the wall. In the faint light filtering through cracks in the fallen stone, Eva could finally see him. His face was pale, strained. A thin line of black blood seeped from his hairline where debris had struck him. "You're hurt," she said. "I'll survive. You won't. Not without—" He closed his eyes. "There's only one way out of this. One option I swore I'd never take again." "What option?" He looked at her. His crimson eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and in them she saw something that might have been grief, or regret, or both. "I need to make you stronger, fast enough to survive what's coming. And there's only one way to do that." Understanding crashed over her like ice water. "No," Eva breathed. "You can't mean—" "A blood pact. Temporary. Just until we fix this. Until we save your son and stop Nathaniel." His voice was raw. "I've turned people before. Centuries ago. I swore I'd never do it again. The curse I carry, the immortality, it's not a gift. It's a prison. I don't want to be a vampire. You won't be, not fully. Half-turned, stronger than human, weaker than us. A bridge between both worlds." He took her hand, gentle despite everything. "But it will bind us. If one of us dies, so does the other. The bond is absolute, unbreakable." Eva's mind spun. There has to be another way. Stone crashed somewhere close. Voices echoed. They were running out of time. "Your son needs you alive," Thaddeus said quietly, "and I need you strong enough to survive what comes next. I'm asking, not compelling, not forcing, asking." She thought of Owen, his smile, the way he drew pictures of dragons and spaceships and dreams that leukemia was slowly killing, the way he'd looked at her last night and said, "Mom, are you scared?" And she'd lied. "No, baby, everything's going to be fine." Eva met Thaddeus's eyes. "If this is the only way to save him," she said, "then do it." He nodded once, drew a knife from his belt, silver, wickedly sharp, drew it across his palm without hesitation. Black blood welled up, gleaming in the faint light. "This will hurt," he warned. "I know." He pressed his bleeding palm to her mouth. The taste hit her like lightning, metal and fire and something ancient that had no name. It burned down her throat, seared through her veins like acid. Every nerve in her body ignited at once. Eva screamed. The world exploded into sensation. Her heart hammered so fast it felt like one continuous beat. Her bones felt like they were breaking and reforming. Her vision sharpened until she could see every crack in the stone walls, every particle of dust suspended in the air. And the pain. God, the pain. It felt like dying, like being unmade and rebuilt cell by cell into something new. Through it all, Thaddeus held her, whispered words in a language older than kingdoms, binding words, ancient promises sealed in blood and will. Eva's eyes flew open. The world looked different, sharper. Colors she'd never seen before bled through the darkness. She could hear Thaddeus's heartbeat, slow, steady, ancient. Could smell the earth around them, the stone, the water seeping through cracks. Could feel something new, a thread, a connection that ran between her heart and his like a silver wire humming with shared life. The bond. She gasped. Her chest heaved. When she looked down at her hands, they glowed faintly, pale copper gold, like captured sunlight. What? Her voice sounded different, clearer. What did you do to me? Saved you. Thaddeus's face was gray, exhausted. The ritual had cost him, and damned us both. Eva touched her face, her eyes. She couldn't see them, but she could feel the difference, the power thrumming beneath her skin. Your eyes, Thaddeus said quietly. Copper gold. I've never seen that color before. The prophecies spoke of silver. But you're something else entirely. Before she could respond, the alcove wall exploded inward. Guards poured through, silver armor, silver blades. Their eyes locked on Eva and Thaddeus, with the cold efficiency of trained killers. Thaddeus pushed Eva behind him, raised his hands. Shadows peeled from the walls like living things, coiling around his fingers. Last chance, he called to the guards. Nathaniel has deceived you all. I am your king. Stand down. The lead guard stepped forward. His face was hard, unforgiving. The king we knew would never flee from his own court, would never hide behind a mortal girl. You've been compromised. The council has voted. Surrender or die. Thaddeus's jaw clenched. The shadows around his hands grew darker, hungrier. So be it. He struck. Darkness exploded outward like a wave. Guards flew backward, crashing into walls. Silver clattered on stone, but there were too many. They kept coming, relentless. Eva felt power surge through the bond, felt Thaddeus drawing on reserves he didn't have. He was already weakened, already wounded. He was going to get himself killed trying to protect her. No, she'd spent her whole life being protected. Being small? Being invisible. Not anymore. Eva stepped forward, raised her hands. The copper-gold light beneath her skin flared bright. And something in her, something new and strange and terrifying, answered. The guards froze, every one of them, their bodies locked in place as if invisible chains had wrapped around them. Eva stared at her glowing hands. What? How did I? The bond, Thaddeus breathed. It's amplifying your natural abilities. You said your mother was a healer, that you trained in field medicine. The bond has taken that gift and made it into a weapon. She could feel them now, the guards, their hearts beating, their blood flowing. Every injury, every weakness, every point of vulnerability mapped out in her mind like a diagram. She could stop them, could slow their hearts until they dropped, could burst vessels with a thought. The power was intoxicating, terrifying. Don't, Thaddeus said quietly. Don't become what they think you are. Eva lowered her hands, released her grip. The guards stumbled, gasping. Run, she told them. Tell Nathaniel we're not surrendering. Tell him we're coming for him. They ran. Thaddeus looked at her with something that might have been wonder or fear. Who are you? He whispered. Eva met his eyes, copper gold to crimson. I'm a mother who's going to save her son. And if Nathaniel Draven wants to stop me, the bond pulsed. Power thrummed through her veins like lightning waiting to strike. He's welcome to try. The guard's footsteps faded into distant echoes. Eva stood in the ruined alcove, her hands still glowing faint copper gold, power thrumming beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. The walls around them bore fresh cracks from the battle. Dust settled in the silence. Thaddeus leaned against the stone, one hand pressed to his side where silver armor had grazed him. Black blood seeped between his fingers, but his eyes never left her face. "How do you feel?" he asked. Eva flexed her fingers. The glow faded, but didn't disappear entirely. She could still feel it there, waiting. A current of energy that had nothing to do with adrenaline and everything to do with what she'd become. "Like I could tear down this whole cathedral," she swallowed hard. "Like I want to. Is that normal? For someone freshly turned?" "Yes." He pushed away from the wall, wincing. "The bloodlust, the power hunger. They're strongest in the beginning. Your body is adjusting to immortal strength while your mind is still fully human. The contradiction creates urges." Eva's throat burned. Now that he mentioned it, she could smell something. Copper, salt, life. The guards who'd fled had left traces of their scent behind, and some primitive part of her brain wanted to follow, to hunt. She pressed her palms against her eyes. "Make it stop. I can't. But I can teach you to control it." Thaddeus moved to stand beside her. "Focus on something else, something that matters more than the hunger." "Owen." "Yes, think of him, his face, his voice. The reason you're fighting." Eva closed her eyes. Owen, 8 years old with her blonde hair and his father's dark eyes. The way he drew dragons in the margins of his homework. How he'd smiled last week despite the chemo, despite everything, and said, "Mom, when I get better, can we get a dog?" The hunger receded. Still there, but manageable. Like a wild animal on a leash. "Better?" Thaddeus asked. Eva nodded, opened her eyes. "How long does it last, this half-turned state?" "Until we break the bond, which can only happen in 2 ways. His expression darkened. "We complete what we started and reverse the ritual, or one of us dies taking the other with us." Reassuring. "I warned you this was a curse, not a gift." They stood in silence for a moment. Eva became aware of the thread connecting them. It pulsed with shared vitality, his ancient, steady heartbeat syncing with her mortal one. Through it, she could feel his exhaustion, his pain. The silver wound in his side burned like acid in her own awareness. "You're hurt worse than you're showing," she said. "I've survived worse." "That's not an answer." Thaddeus's jaw tightened. "The silver is poisoning my system, slowly. It will take days to work through, but it weakens me, makes me—" He stopped, started again. "Makes me vulnerable." The admission cost him. Eva could feel it through the bond. Vulnerability was something he'd learned to hide over 7 centuries. Kings didn't show weakness, predators didn't reveal injury. But she wasn't court, wasn't his subject. The bond made them equals in a way that transcended every rule of their broken hierarchy. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Eva said. "Where?" "There's a monastery, 3 miles through these tunnels, abandoned for 200 years. The vampires who built it fled during the purge of 1824. It's been forgotten since." He pushed away from the wall, swaying slightly. "If we can reach it before dawn—" "Before you collapse, you mean?" "That too." Eva moved to his side, slipped under his arm to support his weight. He stiffened at first, pride probably, then relented. They began walking. The tunnels seemed endless, twisting passages carved from bedrock so old it predated written history. Water dripped from invisible cracks. The air tasted of minerals and earth and time itself. Eva's new senses painted the darkness in shades of gray and copper. She could see perfectly, every stone and shadow rendered in crystalline detail. It was disorienting, beautiful, terrifying. "Tell me about him," Thaddeus said after a while. His voice was strained but steady. "Owen, your son." "Why?" "Because you need to remember why we're running, and I need to stay conscious." "Fair enough." Eva adjusted her grip on his waist. "He's 8, smart as hell, loves science and dragons and those terrible action movies with too many explosions." She smiled despite everything. "He wants to be a paleontologist. Says dinosaurs are better than people because they don't lie." Wise child. He is. too wise for 8. Leukemia does that, makes kids grow up faster than they should. Her throat tightened. The doctors gave him 18 months. That was 14 months ago. We're running out of time, even without Nathaniel's deadline. Through the bond, she felt Thaddeus's grief mirror her own. Not pity, understanding. The weight of watching someone you love slip away while you're powerless to stop it. I lost a son, he said quietly. Long ago, 1944. Normandy. Eva's breath caught. I'm sorry. He was young. For our kind, I mean. Only 73 years turned. But he had your mother's spirit, that same stubborn need to save people. Thaddeus's voice dropped. There was a refugee camp, Jewish families fleeing the Nazi advance. My son knew it was a trap, knew the SS had them surrounded, but he went anyway, held them off long enough for the families to escape through sewers. They killed him, burned him, silver-tipped incendiary rounds, experimental weapons designed specifically to kill our kind. A pause. I received a letter 3 months later from one of the refugees he saved. She was 16. She wrote to thank me for my son's sacrifice, said she was naming her baby after him. Tears blurred Eva's vision. What was his name? Benjamin. Benjamin Ravencrest. The words came out rough, raw. And I tell you this because I understand what it means to fight for someone you love, to make choices that terrify you because the alternative is unthinkable. Eva wiped her eyes with her free hand. Did it get easier? The grief? No, you just learned to carry it better. They walked in silence after that. Eva's mind churned with questions she didn't know how to ask. About immortality, about power, about whether the hunger in her veins would ever truly fade or if this was just who she was now. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern. Eva gasped. Ruins stretched before them, ancient stone buildings half swallowed by stalagmites and time. Gothic arches reached toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Stained glass windows, miraculously intact, glowed with moonlight filtering through cracks in the earth above. The effect was ethereal, ghostly. The monastery of St. Corvinus, Thaddeus said, built in 1615, abandoned when the mortal church discovered what we were and burned half our number in their beds. They made their way through crumbling cloisters toward what looked like the main chapel. Inside, broken pews lay scattered across a stone floor carpeted in centuries of dust. A massive altar stood at the far end, its surface carved with symbols Eva didn't recognize. Thaddeus sank onto one of the few intact benches. His skin had gone gray. The silver poisoning was spreading. Rest, Eva said. I'll keep watch. You need to feed. The words hit her like ice water. What? The transformation. It burns energy faster than your mortal metabolism can supply. You're running on fumes. Soon you'll be too weak to fight. He met her eyes. There are rats in these ruins. Small animals. Not human, but enough to sustain you until... I'm not drinking blood. Eva, no. She backed away. That's where I draw the line. I'll control the hunger. I'll learn the powers, but I won't become... She stopped. Because what? A monster? She'd already crossed that line the moment she accepted the blood pact. Thaddeus didn't argue, just watched her with those ancient crimson eyes that had seen this same struggle play out 1,000 times. When you're ready, he said simply, not before. Eva turned away, paced the length of the chapel. Her new senses catalogued everything, the scurry of mice in the walls, the slow drip of water, the rhythmic pulse of Thaddeus's labored breathing. And something else, a presence, moving through the tunnels toward them, fast. Someone's coming, Eva said, spinning toward the entrance. Thaddeus was on his feet instantly, pain forgotten, shadows coiled around his hands. How many? One, I think, moving alone. She concentrated. The presence felt familiar somehow. Not hostile, or not immediately hostile. That narrows it down to most of the kingdom. Footsteps echoed through the ruined cloisters. A figure appeared in the chapel doorway, silhouetted against the faint moonlight. Young, or young-looking anyway, Perhaps 60 years turned, which made him practically a child by vampire standards. Messy dark hair, clothes torn and blood-stained. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Your Majesty," he gasped. "Lady Evangeline, thank God I found you." Thaddeus's eyes narrowed. "Finnegan Ashford, what are you doing here?" "Bringing news, bad news." Finn stumbled into the chapel, nearly collapsing. "The court, the High Council, they've—" He bent double, catching his breath. "Nathaniel. He's crowned himself, 2 hours ago. Emergency session. He claimed you attacked him in a fit of madness, that you fled with a mortal accomplice after attempting to murder the council." Eva's stomach dropped. They believed him? Most of them. The ones who didn't, Finn's expression darkened. Captain Aldrich Stone tried to object, demanded a formal investigation. Nathaniel had him arrested for conspiracy. His daughter, too. "Aurora?" Thaddeus's voice went sharp. "She's barely 40 years old. What possible threat? Leverage." Finn pulled a leather satchel from his shoulder. "Nathaniel knows the captain is loyal to you, so he's using the girl to ensure cooperation. And there's more." He dumped the satchel's contents onto the altar. Documents spilled across the stone. Ledgers, contracts, bank statements, all bearing the royal seal. "I raided the Treasury archives before fleeing," Finn explained. "These are the real accounts, the ones Nathaniel thought he'd destroyed." He pointed to a ledger marked 1845. "Look at the numbers." Eva moved closer. Even without formal training, she could see the discrepancies. Money flowing in, money flowing out. But the destinations were all shell corporations, offshore accounts, foundations that existed only on paper. $75 million, Finn said flatly. Embezzled over 180 years. He started small, a few thousand here and there, but it grew, especially in the last 50 years. He was financing entire black market operations, blood farms, weapons trafficking, things that would destroy the fragile peace treaty with mortal governments if exposed. Thaddeus picked up one of the contracts. His hands shook, not from weakness, from rage. "The Children's Hospital Fund," he read aloud, "established 1920, $5 million annually to provide free treatment for mortal children with terminal illnesses." He looked up. "This was Benjamin's legacy. After my son died saving those refugees, I swore to honor his memory by protecting children. All children. This fund was supposed to—" "Nathaniel diverted it," Finn finished grimly. 90% went into his personal accounts. The remaining 10% he used for publicity to keep you believing the program was successful." The chapel went silent. Eva could hear the grinding of Thaddeus's teeth, feel his fury through the bond like wildfire spreading through dry grass. "How many?" Thaddeus's voice was deadly quiet. "How many children died because the money wasn't there?" Finn looked away. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. The records are incomplete." Eva thought of Owen. Of every family like hers drowning in medical debt while billionaires played games with human lives. The copper-gold light beneath her skin flared bright. "We need to stop him," she said. "We need to expose this, make the whole court see—" "There's more." Finn's expression was haunted. "The coronation ceremony. Nathaniel's planned it for tomorrow night, midnight. Full court attendance mandatory, 300 witnesses. So we crash it," Eva said, "and we show them the evidence. Prove he's been stealing—" "We can't just walk in," Thaddeus interrupted. "He's declared us fugitives. We'd be arrested on sight. Then we sneak in, disguise ourselves, find a way. There's a bigger problem." Finn pulled one more document from the pile. This one was different, newer, written in Nathaniel's precise handwriting. "I found this in his private chambers. It's a contingency plan if you try to reclaim the throne, if he thinks he might lose." He spread the paper on the altar. Eva's blood turned to ice. Veritas Toxin Dispersal System, Cathedral Ventilation Network, Activation Trigger, Remote Detonation, Estimated Casualties, 300 plus. "He's going to bomb the cathedral," she whispered. "If we interfere. If he thinks we're going to win, he'll kill everyone to prevent us from exposing him." Thaddeus stared at the document. Through the bond, Eva felt his despair. His impossible choice. Let Nathaniel take the throne and save 300 lives, or fight to reclaim it and risk mass murder. Your Majesty. Finn's voice was gentle. There's one more thing. About the boy. Owen Thornwell. Eva's heart stopped. What about him? Nathaniel has him, in the cathedral dungeons. He's being held as insurance. If you or Lady Evangeline attempt to interfere with the coronation, the child will be executed publicly, broadcasted to every vampire house in the kingdom as proof of what happens to traitors. The world tilted. Eva grabbed the altar for support. Owen, her baby, in a cell, terrified, alone. Through the bond, Thaddeus caught her before she collapsed, held her upright while her mind screamed. How long? She managed. How long do we have? 48 hours, Finn said. The execution is scheduled for midnight tomorrow, immediately after Nathaniel's coronation. He's calling it the Trial of Traitors. 48 hours. 2 days to save her son, to stop a madman, to prevent a massacre. Impossible. Eva pulled away from Thaddeus, paced the chapel like a caged animal. Her mind raced through options, discarding each one as fast as it formed. They were outnumbered, outgunned, wanted criminals in a kingdom that had already decided their guilt. She stopped in front of a wall covered in faded frescoes. Saints and sinners painted in Byzantine gold. Stories of martyrdom and redemption, and beneath them, carved directly into the stone, words in a language she suddenly understood. When copper flame burns eternal night, the half-born shall break old chains. Thaddeus, her voice cracked. What is this? He moved to stand beside her. Read the inscription. His expression shifted. The prophecy of St. Corvinus. I thought it was lost, destroyed when the monastery fell. What does it mean? St. Corvinus was the first vampire to seek peace with mortals. He believed our kinds could coexist. That cooperation was stronger than conquest. Then Thaddeus traced the carved letters. Before he was executed for heresy, he left a prophecy that one day a half-born creature, neither mortal nor vampire, would arise to challenge the old order, that this being would carry the flame of mortality into immortal darkness and forge a new covenant. Eva looked at her hands. The copper-gold glow was stronger here, as if the words themselves were feeding it. My eyes. The color, is that... The prophecy speaks of silver eyes. But you're something else, something unexpected. He turned to her. The bond we created. Your mother's healing gift transformed into power. Your refusal to become fully vampire. You're the bridge Corvinus dreamed of. I'm a waitress who got in over her head. You're exactly what we need. Finn stepped forward. His eyes were bright with something that looked like hope. Don't you see? Nathaniel's power comes from fear, from the old ways. But you represent change, evolution, the possibility that we don't have to be monsters. Tell that to Owen when they execute him. The words came out bitter, broken. Eva sank onto a pew and buried her face in her hands. The prophecy meant nothing. Power meant nothing. She was still just one person against an entire kingdom. Thaddeus sat beside her, didn't touch her, just existed in the space, a solid presence in her peripheral vision. When Benjamin died, he said quietly, I wanted to burn the world, to punish everyone who'd allowed it to happen, the Nazis, the Allies who'd arrived too late, God himself for creating a universe where good men died for nothing. Eva looked up. But then I received that letter from the girl he saved, and I realized burning the world wouldn't honor his sacrifice. Building something better would. He met her eyes. Your son is alive. Scared, yes, but alive. And as long as he draws breath, there's hope. We just have to be smart enough to seize it. How? We can't fight 300 vampires. We can't defuse a bomb we can't reach. We can infiltrate. The voice came from the chapel entrance. All three of them spun. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, ancient armor scarred from centuries of battle. His face was hard, weathered, but his eyes held something Eva recognized: loyalty. "Captain Aldrich Stone," Thaddeus breathed. "They said you were arrested." "I was." Aldrich stepped into the moonlight. His wrists bore fresh burns from silver shackles. "They have my daughter, Aurora. She's 14 years old, Your Majesty, barely turned, and Nathaniel is holding her in the same cell as the boy." Eva's heart lurched. "Owen, is he hurt? Is he—" "Scared, but unharmed. I saw him through the cell bars before they dragged me away." Aldrich's expression softened. He asked if his mother was coming. I told him yes. I hope I didn't lie. "You didn't." Eva stood. "I'm coming. We're coming. All of us." "Then listen carefully." Aldrich moved to the altar, pulled out a crumpled paper. "I escaped 30 minutes ago, killed 3 guards and fled through the sewers. Before I left, I memorized the coronation schedule." He spread the paper. It was a crude map of the cathedral, hand-drawn but detailed. "Nathaniel has tripled security, silver-tipped weapons, UV emplacements. He's paranoid you'll try something." Aldrich pointed to the main hall. "But he's also arrogant. The coronation requires witnesses, legitimacy. He's invited every vampire lord from every major house, plus mortal dignitaries to show his progressive leadership. The cathedral will be packed." "Which makes infiltration impossible," Finn said, "unless you're not infiltrating as yourselves." Aldrich looked at Eva. You're half-turned. Your scent is wrong. Not fully human, not fully vampire. To most of the court you'll register as other, unidentifiable." "So?" "So you disguise as a specialist, a plague doctor, a medical expert called in to examine potential contamination from the mortal dignitaries." He tapped the medical wing on his map. "The cathedral has a quarantine protocol, been in place since the Spanish flu. If there's a suspected outbreak, specialists have access to restricted areas, including the dungeons." Eva's mind raced. "You want me to fake a plague scare? I want you to be the plague scare, your copper eyes, your strange scent. You walk in claiming to be a hybrid specialist, studying cross-species contamination. Half the court will believe you. The other half will be too terrified of infection to question it." Aldrich's smile was grim. "Vampires are immortal, but we're not immune to disease. One plague nearly wiped us out in 1665. They'll give you access to avoid another Black Death." "And while Eva is inside," Thaddeus said slowly, understanding dawning, "I create a distraction. Draw Nathaniel's attention. Force him to respond publicly." "Exactly." Aldrich pointed to the throne room. "You interrupt the coronation, claim your right to rule, challenge his legitimacy. It doesn't matter if they arrest you. What matters is you're visible, alive. The court will split, some will support you, others will hesitate. That chaos gives Eva time to reach the dungeons." "And the bomb?" Finn asked. "That's where I come in." Aldrich pulled back his sleeve. Revealed a tattoo Eva hadn't noticed, a raven clutching a key. "I designed the cathedral's security systems 80 years ago, including the ventilation network. I know where Nathaniel would hide a dispersal device, but I'll need time to locate and disarm it." "How much time?" 15 minutes, maybe less, if I'm not interrupted." Eva's throat tightened. "And if Nathaniel realizes what we're doing? If he triggers the bomb early?" Silence. "Then we all die together," Thaddeus said finally. "But we die trying to save 300 innocents and 2 children. I can live with that, or die with it, as the case may be." Eva wanted to argue, to find a safer plan, a plan that didn't risk Owen's life on split-second timing and desperate gambles, but there was no safer plan. There was only this, the slim chance, the impossible shot. Her mother had taken worse odds, had run into collapsing buildings to save strangers, had died with her hands on a tourniquet, fighting to the last breath. Eva could do no less. "I'll need to learn fast," she said. "Medical terminology, court etiquette, how to pass as a specialist when I barely finished community college." "I'll teach you." Thaddeus moved to her side. "I've negotiated with plague doctors. Studied under alchemists and physicians. I can give you enough knowledge to fake expertise for the time you'll need." "And the copper eyes?" Eva gestured to her face. "They're not exactly subtle. Tinted glasses, medical equipment." Finn was already rummaging through the satchel. "I brought supplies, disguises, everything I could grab before fleeing." He pulled out a pair of dark-lensed spectacles, brass frames, medical-grade filters. Eva put them on. The world dimmed to sepia tones, but the glow of her eyes disappeared. "Perfect," Aldrich said. "You look the part. Now you just need to act it." For the next 6 hours they worked. Thaddeus taught her the language of medicine, Latin terms, symptoms, diagnostic procedures used in vampire courts. Eva's enhanced memory absorbed it all like a sponge. The bond between her and Thaddeus helped. She could access his 7 centuries of experience, pulling knowledge from his mind like books from a library. Finn coached her on court etiquette, how to stand, how to speak, the proper forms of address for each rank, which nobles could be approached directly, and which required formal introduction. Aldrich drilled her on the cathedral's layout. Every corridor, every stairwell, the fastest routes from entrance to dungeon, where guards would be stationed, where cameras watched, and through it all, Eva felt Owen. Not physically, the bond didn't extend to him, but in her heart, in the driving need that made her push through exhaustion and fear and the growing hunger that gnawed at her insides. Dawn came. Light filtered through cracks in the monastery ceiling. Thaddeus retreated to a shadowed corner, his skin smoking faintly where indirect sunlight touched it. "Rest," Eva told him. "You look like death warmed over." Appropriate, given my condition. But he smiled. Tired. Genuine. "You're a quick study. Your mother would be proud. My mother would think I'd lost my mind." "That too." Eva sat beside him in the shadows. Her body ached despite the enhanced healing. 24 hours ago, she'd been a waitress scraping by. Now she was half vampire, planning to infiltrate a coronation to save her son from an embezzling madman with a doomsday device. The absurdity would have made her laugh if she wasn't so terrified. "Thaddeus," she said quietly, "if this doesn't work, if we fail, and Owen—" She couldn't finish. "We won't fail. But if we do, I need you to promise me something." He looked at her, waiting. Make sure he's not alone. At the end. Make sure someone holds him and tells him his mother loved him more than anything. Can you promise me that? Through the bond, she felt his grief. His memory of Benjamin dying alone in French mud, of arriving 3 days too late to say goodbye. "I promise," he said. "But it won't come to that. We're going to save him. Both children. And then we're going to burn Nathaniel's world to the ground." Eva leaned her head against his shoulder, just for a moment, just to remember what it felt like to not carry everything alone. "The prophecy," she murmured. "Do you really think I'm some kind of chosen one? That this was all meant to happen? I think you're a mother who loves her son, and that's more powerful than any prophecy." He paused. "But yes, I think you're exactly who we need. Not because fate ordained it, but because you chose to be." They sat in silence as the sun crossed the sky above them. Eva dozed fitfully, her dreams full of Owen's face and silver dungeons and fire that smelled like copper. She woke to Finn shaking her shoulder. "It's time," he said. "Sunset in 30 minutes. The coronation begins in 4 hours." Eva stood, splashed water from a stone basin on her face, put on the dark glasses, the white medical coat Finn had stolen, pulled her hair back in a severe bun. She looked at herself in a shard of broken mirror. A stranger stared back, sharp, dangerous. Not a waitress anymore, not fully human, something new, something caught between worlds, the half-born. Aldrich approached with 2 syringes. "Vampire blood, diluted with saline. Inject these at the cathedral entrance. It'll make you smell like you've been working with infected patients. Sell the plague doctor's story." Eva took them. Her hands didn't shake. Thaddeus emerged from the shadows. He'd cleaned up, changed into dark formal wear that Finn had brought. He looked every inch the king again, regal, commanding, ready for war. "The plan is simple," he said, gathering them close. "Eva enters through the medical wing. Aldrich goes through the maintenance tunnels to locate the bomb. Finn creates a diversion at the east gate to draw guards away, and I walk through the front door like I own the place." "Because you do," Finn said. "Because I did. Now I'm reclaiming it." Thaddeus looked at each of them in turn. "This is dangerous, possibly suicidal. Anyone who wants out, leave now. No judgment." No one moved. "Good." Thaddeus extended his hand. "For Benjamin, for Owen and Aurora, for every life Nathaniel has stolen." They clasped hands, vampire and half-born and messenger, bound by honor and desperation and the slim hope that sometimes the broken could fix what the powerful had destroyed. "One more thing," Aldrich said. He reached into his armor, pulled out a small wooden box, opened it to reveal a single vial of silver liquid. "Veritas toxin, the real thing. I stole it from Nathaniel's private cache." Eva's blood ran cold. "Why would you—" "Insurance. If Nathaniel triggers the bomb and we can't stop it, this gives us an option. Inject it directly into his heart. He dies instantly. The detonator dies with him. The bomb needs his biometrics to activate. Kill him fast enough, and the failsafes prevent ignition." "That's a terrible plan," Finn said. "It's a last resort." Aldrich pressed the vial into Eva's hand. "Keep it, just in case." Eva stared at the liquid silver, concentrated death in a glass tube. She tucked it into her medical coat pocket where it burned like a coal against her ribs. "Let's go," Thaddeus said. "We have a coronation to crash." They emerged from the monastery into twilight. The Cathedral of Ashenmore loomed in the distance, its obsidian spires black against a purple sky. Lights blazed in every window. Music drifted on the wind. The celebration of a new king built on lies and stolen gold. Eva adjusted her glasses, felt the syringes in her pocket, the toxin, the weight of impossible choices. Owen was in there, somewhere in those stone halls, waiting for his mother. She wouldn't let him down. They split at the city outskirts. Finn headed east toward the outer wall. In his hands, a crude incendiary device wrapped in oilcloth. His job was simple. Create chaos, draw guards, buy Eva 90 seconds. Aldrich disappeared into a sewer grate, his armor scraping against stone as he descended into the labyrinth of maintenance tunnels beneath the cathedral. 15 minutes to find and disarm a bomb. 15 minutes to prevent mass murder. Thaddeus clasped Eva's hand one final time. "Remember," he said, "you're not alone. I'm with you, always." The bond pulsed between them, warm, steady, proof that she carried his strength just as he carried her determination. "See you on the other side," Eva said. "Count on it." They parted. Eva walked toward the cathedral alone. The medical coat flapped around her legs. Her heart hammered. The copper-gold light beneath her skin fought to break free. She injected the first syringe. Her scent changed immediately. Sickly sweet. Contaminated. Other vampires would smell it and keep their distance. Perfect. The cathedral entrance loomed ahead. Guards in silver armor flanked the doors. They tensed as she approached. Eva didn't hesitate. Walked straight up, pulled credentials from her coat, forged documents claiming she was Dr. Elise Hartwell, hybrid contamination specialist, summoned by the High Council. "I'm here about the outbreak," she said crisply. Professional. Brooking no argument. "Where's your quarantine ward?" The guards exchanged glances. One spoke into a radio, listened to a crackled response. "Dr. Hartwell, yes ma'am. We've been expecting you, this way." They opened the doors. Eva stepped into the cathedral. The scent of blood and wine and fear washed over her. The grand hall blazed with light. Hundreds of vampires in formal wear, mortal dignitaries in diplomatic dress, all gathered to witness history. At the far end, on a throne of black marble, sat Nathaniel Draven. He wore the crown. Eva's fingers tightened on her medical bag. Copper gold light flared beneath her skin. 48 hours had become 4. The game had begun. The cathedral's medical wing stretched before Eva like a gauntlet. Sterile white walls, the sharp bite of antiseptic, examination rooms with doors half open, revealing empty gurneys and instrument trays that gleamed under fluorescent light. She followed the guards deeper, her medical bag clutched tight. Through the bond, she felt Thaddeus somewhere above, moving through the cathedral's public spaces. His presence was a steady pulse against her ribs, waiting, watching. Dr. Hartwell. One of the guards gestured toward a heavy iron door at the corridor's end. The quarantine ward is below. Dungeon level 3. The suspected cases are being held there. Eva's heart hammered. Below, where Owen was being held. I'll need full access, she said, adjusting her dark glasses. No restrictions. Contamination protocols require immediate isolation and examination of all potential vectors. The guard hesitated, spoke into his radio. A crackling response came back, approval from someone higher up the chain. Nathaniel's people, probably. Too confident in their security to worry about one supposed medical specialist. This way, doctor. They descended. Stone steps worn smooth by centuries. The air grew colder with each level. Eva's breath misted despite the enhanced body temperature the bond provided. Through the connection, she felt Thaddeus's tension spike. He knew she was close. The dungeon level stretched before her. Cells lined both walls, iron bars black with age. Most were empty, but at the far end, lamplight flickered across 2 occupied cages. Eva's breath caught. Owen. He sat huddled in the corner of his cell, knees pulled to his chest. Even from this distance, she could see he was shivering. His hospital gown hung loose on his thin frame. His blonde hair, her hair, was matted with sweat. But he was alive. In the cell beside him, a young vampire girl sat with rigid composure. Dark hair, pale skin, eyes too old for her apparent age. Aurora Stone, Aldrich's daughter. I need the guards to clear this level, Eva said sharply. Potential airborne contamination. Everyone without proper protection needs to evacuate immediately. The lead guard frowned. Our orders are to maintain constant surveillance. Your orders don't account for hemorrhagic fever that can jump species barriers. Eva pulled a handheld scanner from her bag. Actually, just a modified thermometer, but they didn't know that. She waved it in the air. I'm reading elevated pathogen markers. Either you leave now or you risk carrying infection back to the coronation. Your choice. The guards exchanged nervous glances. Fear of disease outweighed duty. They'd lived through plagues before. Watched entire houses fall to invisible killers. We'll be outside, the lead guard said. Radio if you need assistance. They left. Eva waited until their footsteps faded. Then she moved. Owen, her voice cracked. She ran to his cell, gripped the bars. Baby, it's me, it's Mom. Owen's head snapped up. His eyes, dark, feverish, terrified, locked onto her face. For a heartbeat, he didn't recognize her. Then understanding dawned. Mom? His voice was small, broken. Mom, they said you were dead. They said, I'm here, I'm alive. I'm getting you out. Eva's hands shook as she fumbled with the cell lock. Silver. She couldn't touch it without burning. Just hold on, baby, just hold on. Lady Evangeline. Aurora's voice was calm. Too calm. The voice of someone who'd learned early to hide fear. The keys are with the shift captain. Upper level. But the locks are silver core. Even with keys, you'd need gloves. Eva cursed. Looked at her bare hands. The copper-gold light pulsed beneath her skin, but that wouldn't help against silver burns. Think. Think. She closed her eyes, reached through the bond. Thaddeus. I need help. The dungeons, silver locks, can't... His response came instantly, warm. Certain. You have the power, the bond. You stopped the guards before. Remember, blood control, metal has memory, silver has veins. Find them. Eva's eyes snapped open. She stared at the lock, extended her senses the way she had in the tunnels, searching, feeling. And there, microscopic impurities in the silver, trace elements of iron and copper from the forging process, veins of other metals running through the lock mechanism like threads. Eva focused. The copper-gold light flared bright. She felt the lock's internal structure, the pins, the tumblers, the foreign metals that didn't belong. Move. The copper threads shifted, aligned. The iron pins slid back. The lock clicked open. Owen's cell door swung wide. He launched himself at her. Eva caught him, nearly sobbing as his thin arms wrapped around her neck. He was so light, too light. The leukemia and captivity had stolen what little weight he'd carried. Mom, I was so scared. They said terrible things. They said you were a monster now, that you'd hurt people. Never. Eva pressed her face into his hair, breathed in his scent, her son, her reason, her entire world. I could never hurt you. I love you more than anything, more than life. Do you understand? He nodded against her shoulder. Eva forced herself to let go, opened Aurora's cell the same way. The vampire girl stepped out with quiet dignity, but Eva saw the relief in her eyes. Thank you, my lady, Aurora said formally. Call me Eva, and save your thanks until we're out of here. She pulled Owen close. Can you walk? I think so. My legs are shaky, but... He stopped. His eyes went wide. Mom, your eyes. They're glowing. Eva had forgotten the glasses. She'd dropped them when she opened the locks. Owen stared at her copper-gold eyes with a mixture of wonder and fear. I know I look different, she said gently. I am different. Something happened. Something that gave me the power to save you. But I'm still your mom. Still the same person who makes terrible pancakes and sings off-key and loves you more than the entire universe. Okay? Owen reached up, touched her face. His small hand was warm against her cheek. Okay, he whispered. You're still my mom. Above them, the cathedral bells tolled. Midnight. The coronation was beginning. Through the bond, Eva felt Thaddeus move, felt his determination crystallize into action. He was making his entrance. We need to go, Eva said. Now, both of you stay close. Don't make a sound. They climbed the stairs. Eva's senses painted the darkness in perfect detail. Guards patrolled the upper levels, but she could hear their heartbeats, predict their routes. They slipped past like ghosts. Meanwhile, at the east gate, Finnegan Ashford struck a match. The incendiary device, crude but effective, ignited with a whoosh. Flames roared up the side of the outer wall, licking at ancient stone. Not real damage, just spectacle. Just noise. Fire! East wall! All units respond. Guards rushed toward the blaze, boots pounding on cobblestone. Finn melted into shadows, circling back toward the main entrance. 90 seconds. That's all Eva needed. 90 seconds bought with gasoline and matches, and the hope that chaos created opportunity. He'd done his part. Now he had to get inside and find the projector, the evidence, the documents that would burn Nathaniel's lies to ash. Deep beneath the cathedral, in the labyrinth of maintenance tunnels, Captain Aldrich Stone crawled through a ventilation shaft. His ancient armor scraped against metal. The schematic burned in his mind. Maintenance Junction 7, Sub-Level 2. Owen's fever had pinpointed the bomb's location. The boy's vampire sense had done what 80 years of engineering knowledge couldn't. Aldrich dropped into a chamber thick with dust and decades of neglect, and there, the device. Silver canisters arranged in a circle. Veritas toxin glowing purple-white behind reinforced glass. And, at the center, a detonator connected to Nathaniel's biometric reader. Sophisticated, paranoid. Exactly what Aldrich would have built if he wanted to ensure no one could disarm it. 15 minutes. That's what he'd promised. Aldrich pulled his tools, began working. His hands, steady through centuries of war, trembled slightly. Aurora's face flashed in his mind, 14 years old. Captured because of him. In a cell beside a dying mortal boy, because Aldrich had trusted the wrong man. This had to work, wire by wire, circuit by circuit. 10 minutes. A failsafe triggered. Red lights blazed across the device's surface. Somewhere, an alarm would be sounding in Nathaniel's pocket, a silent warning that someone was tampering with his insurance policy. Aldrich cursed, worked faster. His fingers flew across the connections, mapping the logic, searching for the master kill switch. 5 minutes. The biometric lock pulsed with malevolent light. If Nathaniel died before this was disarmed, the device would auto-detonate. Failsafe within failsafe. Dead man's switch wrapped in dead man's switch. 3 minutes. One wire left. Blue or red. 80 years of experience versus one psychopath's paranoia. Aldrich had designed half the cathedral's systems, but Nathaniel had access to the same archives, would have studied Aldrich's patterns, anticipated his choices. So which wire would Nathaniel expect him to cut? Blue. Standard protocol. Aldrich always followed standard protocol, which meant the correct choice was red. Unless Nathaniel knew that Aldrich would think that way, in which case blue was correct after all. Aldrich closed his eyes, saw Rebecca Thornwell, Eva's mother, in Haiti, 2010. Her hands on a patient's chest, the choice between the risky surgery that might save them or the safe amputation that would guarantee survival. Sometimes, she'd said when he'd asked how she decided, you trust your gut over the manual. Aldrich cut the blue wire. The device went dark. All lights died. The toxin canister's glow faded to nothing. Aldrich slumped against the wall, breathing hard. His entire body shook with adrenaline and relief. Device is disarmed, he said into his radio. Cathedral is secure. Through the static, Finn's voice came back. Confirmed. Proceeding to Phase 2. Aldrich allowed himself one moment, one breath. Then he climbed back into the ventilation shaft. Aurora was still in danger. The mission wasn't over. But 300 people wouldn't die tonight. That was enough. The medical wing was empty. Everyone had been called to the coronation. Mandatory attendance, Aldrich had said. Nathaniel wanted witnesses to his triumph. Eva led Owen and Aurora toward the maintenance corridor that would take them to the east exit, where Finn had created his diversion. Just another 100 yards. Then they'd be, well, this is unexpected. Eva froze. Nathaniel Draven stood blocking the corridor. He wore crimson robes trimmed in black. The crown sat on his silver hair, gleaming in the lamplight. His smile was the smile of a man who'd planned for every contingency. Behind him, a dozen guards materialized, silver weapons drawn. Dr. Hartwell, I presume. Nathaniel's voice was smooth, amused. Or should I say Lady Evangeline Thornwell, the king's new pet? Eva pushed Owen behind her. Aurora moved to her other side, fangs bared despite her youth. Let them go, Eva said. Her voice was steady, cold. Your fight is with Thaddeus, with me, not children. Oh, but that's where you're wrong. Nathaniel stepped closer. My fight is with anyone who threatens the natural order. Thaddeus was weak, sentimental. He wanted to give mortals rights, voice, power. He spat the word like poison. He forgot what we are. Predators, rulers, gods who walk among cattle. You're embezzlers who steal from children's hospitals. Nathaniel's smile didn't waver. I reallocated resources to more productive ventures. Thaddeus wasted millions on mortal charity, blood farms, diplomatic programs, all to assuage his guilt over a son who died being foolish. Rage flooded through Eva. The copper-gold light beneath her skin blazed bright. Benjamin Ravencrest died saving refugees, she said. He died being a hero, something you'll never understand. He died being a fool, and now his father will die the same way. Nathaniel pulled something from his robes. A small device, black metal, red button. Do you know what this is? Eva's blood turned to ice. The detonator. Veritas toxin, Nathaniel continued conversationally. Dispersed through the cathedral's ventilation system. The moment I press this button, every vampire in the coronation hall dies. 300 of the oldest, most powerful members of our society, gone in seconds. You'd kill your own people, if necessary. His eyes were flat, empty. I'd rather rule ashes than kneel to a weak king. And if I can't have the throne, no one can. Owen's hand found Eva's, squeezed tight. She could feel him trembling. Through the bond, she felt Thaddeus's alarm. He'd heard. Somehow, he'd heard. "Eva, don't engage. Get Owen out. I'm coming." But there was no way out. Guards blocked every exit. Nathaniel held the detonator. One wrong move and 300 people died, including Thaddeus, who was even now walking into the coronation hall. Think. There had to be a way, an angle, something. "You're bluffing," Eva said. "You worked too hard for this, planned too long. You won't throw it away on a suicide trigger?" "Won't I?" Nathaniel's thumb hovered over the button. "Test me." Owen whimpered. Aurora grabbed his other hand, her young face set in grim determination, and then Owen gasped. His whole body went rigid, his eyes rolled back. "Owen!" Eva caught him as he collapsed. "Baby, what's wrong? What?" "Hot," Owen moaned. "So hot. Like fire, like—" His eyes focused on something Eva couldn't see. "Mom, the walls, they're burning. Can't you feel it?" Eva touched his forehead. He was burning up, fever spiking. But wait, the last time Owen's fever had spiked was when vampire guards had raided their apartment. He'd sensed them before Eva had seen them. His sickness wasn't just leukemia. It was power. Vampires' sensing ability awakened by proximity to their kind. His body reacted to their aura like an early warning system, like a living detector. "Owen," Eva knelt, gripped his shoulders. "The heat. Where is it coming from? Can you tell?" Owen's hand lifted, pointed down the corridor, toward the maintenance shaft entrance half hidden behind a tapestry. "There," he whispered, "behind the walls. Something wrong. Something poison. The bomb." Except, through her radio earpiece, Aldrich's voice had said it was disarmed. The device was dead, so why was Owen still sensing, unless there was a second device? Eva's blood ran cold. "Nathaniel, you didn't just build one bomb, you built two." His smile widened. "Insurance has insurance. Did you think I'd stake everything on one system? The primary device was always meant to be found, disarmed, make you feel safe." He pressed the button. Nothing happened, because Aldrich had cut the right wire after all. But Nathaniel wasn't panicking. He pulled out a second detonator. "The backup device," he said pleasantly, "is on a dead man's switch. If my heart stops, it triggers automatically. So unless you want to watch 300 people burn—" Aurora moved, 14 years old, barely turned. But she'd been trained by her father since birth. Trained for moments exactly like this. She was faster than the guards, faster than Nathaniel expected. She closed the distance in a blur, her hand reaching for the detonator. Nathaniel spun. His other hand produced a silver blade. He drove it toward Aurora's chest. Eva's power exploded outward. Copper-gold light blazed through the corridor like a sun-going nova. She felt every heartbeat in the room, every drop of blood, every weakness. The blade stopped inches from Aurora's heart, frozen in midair. Eva was holding it, not physically, mentally. The iron in the steel sang to her power. The copper traces in the alloy answered her call. "You're not killing anyone else," Eva said. Her voice echoed with something that wasn't entirely human. Not her, not Owen, not the 300 people upstairs who trusted you. Nathaniel's eyes widened. "That's not possible. You're only half turned. You shouldn't have this much—" "I'm not like anything you've seen before." Eva stepped forward. The blade trembled, then shattered. Fragments of silver scattered across the floor. "I'm the bridge, the half-born, and I'm done being afraid of monsters like you." She reached for the detonator. Nathaniel stumbled backward. "You can't. If I die, the bomb—" "Then don't die." Eva grabbed his wrist, not with her hands, with her power. His blood obeyed her will like iron filings to a magnet. She could feel his heart, could squeeze it, stop it, end him with a thought. But that would trigger the bomb. "Owen," she said without looking away from Nathaniel, "the device you're sensing, where is it exactly?" Owen pointed again, more precisely this time. His fever-bright eyes mapped the heat signature like thermal imaging. 30 feet down, behind the north wall, in the old priest's quarters." Eva's mind raced 30 feet, through solid stone. No time to reach it physically, but if Owen could sense its location that precisely. She looked at Aurora. "Can you get there, if I tell you exactly where?" "Yes." Aurora's voice was steel. "Then go. Now. I'll handle this." Aurora ran, vanished down the corridor toward the maintenance shaft. The guards moved to intercept, but Eva's power stopped them cold. Every blade, every gun, every weapon made of metal answered to her command. Nathaniel struggled against her invisible grip. "You can't hold me and disarm the bomb the moment you let go." "I'm not letting go," Eva smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "And I'm not disarming anything. She is, while I make sure you stay alive long enough to face justice." Through the bond, she felt Thaddeus burst into the coronation hall above, felt the shock that rippled through the court. The king had returned. And below, Aurora's voice came through the radio. "I found it. Lady Eva, I need instructions." "Don't cut anything," Eva said. "Just pull it out of the wall. All of it. Canisters, detonator, everything." Nathaniel's heartbeat is the trigger, but the device needs his biometric signature to arm. If it's not connected to the cathedral's power grid, it can't read his vitals. A pause. The sound of stone breaking. Aurora grunting with effort. "Got it. It's dead. No lights. No power." Eva released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Nathaniel's face went pale. No, this isn't. I was supposed to." "You were supposed to rule with honor," Thaddeus's voice said from behind them. Eva spun. He stood at the corridor's end, having appeared as silently as smoke. His crimson eyes blazed with fury, barely contained. "Instead," Thaddeus continued, walking forward, "you chose gold over grace, power over people. You stole from children, murdered the innocent. And when faced with exposure, you tried to kill 300 witnesses to save yourself." Nathaniel lunged. It happened so fast, Eva barely tracked it. He had one more weapon, a final blade hidden in his sleeve. He drove it toward Eva's chest, toward her heart, screaming incoherently. The blade never landed. Aurora Stone, who'd just climbed back from disabling the bomb, intercepted. She caught Nathaniel's wrist mid-thrust. Twisted with vampiric strength, the blade changed trajectory, plunged directly into Nathaniel's own chest. He staggered, looked down at the silver buried in his heart, at his own hand still gripping the hilt. "No," he whispered. "No, this isn't. I was supposed to—" "You were supposed to serve," Thaddeus said quietly. "Instead, you betrayed. And now your own weapon has claimed you. Poetic, really." Nathaniel collapsed. Black blood pooled around him. His skin began to crack, to ash, the silver burning him from the inside out. He reached toward nothing, toward the power he'd never have. "The money," he gasped. "It was mine. I earned it. 200 years of service." "You earned nothing." Thaddeus's voice was final. "Loyalty is not a ledger. Service is not transaction. And now you have what all thieves eventually receive." "Justice," Eva finished. Nathaniel crumbled to dust. The only thing left was the crown he'd stolen. It rolled across the floor, came to rest at Thaddeus's feet. Owen ran to Eva. She caught him, held him close, breathing in his scent. Safe. Alive. Hers. Aurora stood silent, staring at the ash that had been Nathaniel. Her hands shook. "You did well," Thaddeus told her gently. "Your father would be proud." "Is he?" Aurora's voice cracked. "Did he survive disarming the other device?" As if summoned, Aldrich's voice crackled through the radio. "Aurora, are you safe?" "Father!" Aurora grabbed Eva's radio. "I'm safe. Lady Eva saved us. The bomb is disarmed." "Nathaniel is dead," Aldrich finished. "I know. I felt the tremor. I'm on my way up." Thaddeus picked up the crown, held it. Then he looked at Eva. "The court is waiting," he said. 300 witnesses who need to see that justice was served. Will you walk with me?" Eva looked down at Owen, at Aurora, at the children they'd saved. "Yes," she said. "Let's show them what honor looks like." They entered the coronation hall together. The effect was electric. 300 vampires and mortal dignitaries turned as one. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Thaddeus Ravencrest, the supposedly mad king, walked down the center aisle, alive, unmarked, radiating power. Beside him walked a woman with copper-gold eyes that glowed in the cathedral light, and behind them, 2 children, one mortal, one vampire, both freed from cells where Nathaniel had kept them as hostages. Finn appeared from a side entrance, projector in hand. He set it up with practiced efficiency. Images flickered across the cathedral wall, ledgers, bank statements, contracts bearing Nathaniel's signature. $75 million embezzled. Children's hospitals defunded. Blood farms financing black market operations. The court erupted in noise. Thaddeus raised his hand. Silence fell. "Counselor Nathaniel Draven," he said, his voice carrying to every corner, "attempted to murder me, attempted to bomb this cathedral and everyone in it. He held children hostage. He stole from the innocent. And when faced with justice," he gestured to the ash trailing behind them, "he paid the price his crimes demanded." Murmurs, shock, nobles looking at each other, at Thaddeus, at Eva and the children. "But his crimes are not his alone." Thaddeus's voice hardened. "For 2 centuries I trusted him, never questioned, never verified. I allowed corruption to fester because I was too busy ruling to see what was happening beneath my own roof." He walked to the throne, but instead of sitting, he did something that made the entire court gasp. He knelt. Thaddeus Ravencrest, Vampire King, 720 years old, knelt before his assembled nobility. "I kneel," he said, his voice ringing clear, "not in weakness, but in recognition of my failures. I trusted a thief. I failed the children who died because money meant for medicine went into Nathaniel's pockets. I failed the families destroyed by systems I allowed to exist." He looked up at the court, at faces frozen in shock. "I kneel because a king who cannot admit his mistakes has no right to rule. I kneel because tonight a mortal woman showed me what true courage looks like. And I kneel because this kingdom deserves better than a ruler who hides behind crown and title." Silence. Absolute. Profound. Then slowly nobles began to kneel, first one, then another. Within seconds the entire court was on their knees. Even the mortal diplomats bowed their heads. Thaddeus rose, picked up the crown from where it had fallen, held it high. "This throne," he said, "has been built on fear, on subjugation, on the suffering of those we deemed lesser. I declare that foundation broken, shattered, done." He set the crown on the throne, didn't put it on. "I will not rule the old way, not anymore. If I am to be your king, it will be as guardian of a new covenant, one where blood is given freely, where mortals and vampires share power, where children, all children, matter more than gold." He turned to Eva, extended his hand. "Lady Evangeline Thornwell, mortal-born, healer, mother, the half-born who bridges both worlds. Will you stand with me? Will you help me build what should have been built centuries ago?" Eva looked at his hand, at the court watching, at Owen, safe now, tears streaming down his face. She took Thaddeus's hand. "I will," she said, "on one condition." "Name it." "My son gets treatment, full medical care, whatever he needs, and every other child like him. No more choosing between medicine and food. No more families drowning in debt while the powerful hoard gold." "Done." Thaddeus's grip tightened. "The Children's Hospital Fund will be restored, expanded. Every penny Nathaniel stole will go toward saving lives. And we'll establish the Thornwell Memorial Hospital, named for your mother, for the woman who taught you that mercy isn't weakness." Eva's throat tightened. She'd like that. Through the bond she felt his absolute certainty. He meant every word. The court erupted in applause, not polite, not rehearsed, genuine. The sound of change breaking through centuries of stagnation. Aldrich appeared at the throne room entrance, Aurora running to embrace him. Father and daughter reunited. Finn approached the dais, documents in hand. "Your Majesty, the evidence is compiled. Every lord, every lady, they've all seen the truth now." Thaddeus nodded. Then he did something that made the court gasp again. He bowed to Eva, to Owen, to Aurora and Aldrich and Finn. "Thank you," he said simply, "all of you, for reminding me what it means to be worthy." Eva smiled. Her copper-gold eyes blazed in the cathedral light. "That's what family does," she said. And in that moment, the new covenant was born. The garden behind Thornwell Memorial Hospital bloomed with life. Spring flowers in every color imaginable. Trees heavy with new leaves that rustled in the warm breeze. Children's laughter echoing across carefully tended lawns. Eva sat on a stone bench, Owen beside her. He was drawing, dragons again, but healthier dragons now. Dragons that smiled and protected instead of hoarding gold. His hair had grown back, thick and blonde and wild. His cheeks had color. The leukemia was in full remission. The doctors called it a miracle. Eva called it hope combined with medicine that didn't require bankruptcy. "Mom, look!" Owen held up his drawing. "It's you and Lord Thaddeus, fighting the bad guy." Eva studied the picture. Two figures, one with copper-gold eyes, one with a crown, standing together against a shadow. Behind them, a hospital where children played. "It's perfect, baby." Footsteps on gravel. Thaddeus approached, Aurora beside him. The young vampire had become Owen's constant companion, big sister, protector, friend. Behind them walked Aldrich, now head of the reformed Royal Guard, and Finn carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with documents, the chronicles he was writing, the true history of the new covenant. "Lady Evangeline," Thaddeus said formally, then smiled. "Or should I say, Counselor Evangeline?" Eva made a face. The formal title still felt wrong. She was a waitress who'd stumbled into immortal politics, but the court had voted unanimously, the first mortal-born member of the High Council. Lady of the Copper Vigil, guardian of the new covenant. "Just Eva is fine," she said. Thaddeus sat on the bench's other end. Together they watched Owen and Aurora chase each other across the grass, playing, being children instead of pawns in adult wars. "The latest numbers came in," Thaddeus said quietly. "Thornwell Memorial has treated 2,847 children in 9 months, fully funded. No one turned away." "And the other hospitals?" "Following suit. The covenant is spreading. Slowly, but spreading. 5 kingdoms have signed treaties, mortal vampire cooperation councils established in 12 major cities." He paused. "We're building something that will outlast us both." Aldrich approached, his weathered face creased in a rare smile. "Your Majesty, the new guard recruits have completed their first month of training. Mixed units, mortal and vampire, working together. It's remarkable to see." "Your daughter's influence, I suspect," Thaddeus said. "She's taught them well." Aurora overheard and looked embarrassed, but pleased. Finn sat on the grass, portfolio open. "I'm up to Chapter 12, the Battle of the Cathedral. Aurora, I need your perspective on the bomb defusal. How did you know which components to remove?" "Lady Eva told me," Aurora said simply. "She could sense the metals, the copper in the wiring. She guided me through it while holding Nathaniel frozen." "Incredible." Finn scribbled notes. "This is the stuff of legend. The half-born savior. The king who knelt. The children who became heroes." Eva leaned back, felt the sun warm on her face. The half-turned state meant she could tolerate daylight better than full vampires. Another bridge, another reminder of what she'd become. On the bench between her and Thaddeus, 2 objects rested on a bronze plaque. Her mother's Army nurse badge, tarnished but polished with care, and Thaddeus's WI Iron Cross, scarred from battle but gleaming. The plaque read, "For Captain Rebecca Thornwell and Benjamin Ravencrest, who taught us that saving lives matters more than taking them." "Do you think they'd approve?" Eva asked. "My mother, your son." "Of what we're building?" Thaddeus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I think they'd say we took too long, but that we're finally getting it right." Eva laughed, then sobered. "The bond. We still haven't broken it. Do you want to, now that the danger's past?" The bond pulsed between them, warm, familiar, a connection that had become as natural as breathing. "Do you?" Thaddeus countered. Eva thought about it. The bond had saved them. But it also tied their fates together. If one died, so did the other. It was a burden, a risk, but it was also proof that mortal and immortal could share strength, could be equals. "No," she said finally, "I don't want to break it. You?" "No," Thaddeus smiled. "You've become the family I lost, the partner I never thought to find. Breaking the bond would feel like severing a limb. So we're stuck with each other, for however long mortality and immortality can coexist. Forever then, since I'm half of each." Owen ran up, Aurora on his heels. Both were breathless, happy. "Mom, can we get ice cream? Aurora's never had ice cream. Can you believe that? 14 years and no ice cream." "I'm 46, not 14, Aurora corrected primly. But she was smiling. "Though in vampire years, that is rather young." Eva stood. "Ice cream sounds perfect. Lord Thaddeus, you coming? I suppose someone needs to ensure you don't traumatize Aurora with your questionable flavor choices." They walked together through the hospital gardens, past children playing, past families reunited, past a future that looked nothing like the past. Aldrich fell into step beside them. "The treaty signing is next week. The European Council wants Lady Eva present. They're calling her the Copper Flame, the bridge between worlds." "I hate that name," Eva muttered. "You'll grow into it," Finn said cheerfully. "Besides, it's better than what they were calling you before. The King's Pet, the Mortal Abomination, the—" "Thank you, Finn," Thaddeus interrupted. "That's quite enough." That night, back at the small house Eva had bought with her council stipend, she tucked Owen into bed. He looked up at her with his father's dark eyes and her determination. "Mom, are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because you smile now, real smiles, not the fake ones you used to do when you thought I wasn't looking." Eva's throat tightened. "Yeah, baby, I'm happy. Are you?" "Yeah," he yawned. "I like Aurora. And Lord Thaddeus is cool, even though he talks like a history book. And I'm not scared anymore. Of being sick, of dying, of—" Another yawn. "Of anything. Good. Because you're going to live a long, long time. Long enough to become that paleontologist. Long enough to discover dinosaurs no one's ever seen. Promise?" "Promise." He drifted off. Eva sat beside his bed, watching him breathe, marveling at the simple miracle of his chest rising and falling, the life flowing through his veins. Thaddeus appeared in the doorway, silent as shadow. "He's right, you know," he said softly. "You do smile more." "I have reasons to smile now." "You've always had reasons. You just couldn't see them under the weight of everything you carried." He moved to stand beside her. "Your mother. She would be proud, not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you've remained, despite everything." Eva reached for the bond, found Thaddeus's presence there, steady, strong, eternal. "My mother used to say something," Eva whispered. "That honor isn't what you're born with. It's what you choose. Every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." She was a wise woman. She was a woman who died too young trying to save people who hated her. Eva looked up. "Like your son." "Yes. And we're trying to make sure their deaths meant something. That the world they died protecting becomes the world they dreamed of." "Yes." They stood in silence, two souls bound by blood and choice, by loss and hope, by the understanding that sometimes the broken pieces, when fitted together, create something stronger than what came before. Eva's copper-gold eyes caught the lamplight, glowed faintly, a reminder of what she'd become, what she'd sacrificed, what she'd gained. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Giving me the bond, tying your life to mine?" Thaddeus looked at Owen, at the sleeping child who represented everything they were fighting for, then back at Eva. "Every day I don't regret it," he said, "is a day I learn what it means to live instead of merely exist. You taught me that. A waitress with cracked hands and an impossible conscience. You reminded me why I wanted to rule in the first place. To protect people. To protect people. All people, not just the powerful, not just the immortal, everyone." Eva stood, placed a hand on Thaddeus's shoulder. Through the bond she felt his gratitude, his respect, his affection that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with true partnership. "The covenant we've built," she said, "it's fragile. There will be those who resist, who want the old ways back. I know. But we keep fighting, keep building, keep proving that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Yes, because that's what separates us from the monsters." Thaddeus smiled. "Your mother's words, her legacy, mine to carry forward, ours to honor." They left Owen's room, walked through the small house to the back porch. The night air was cool, clear. Stars blazed overhead, the same stars that had watched empires rise and fall, that had seen countless wars and fleeting peace. The same stars that would bear witness to what came next. "They'll write about us, you know," Thaddeus said. "Centuries from now. The vampire king who knelt before his court, the mortal waitress who became a counselor, the covenant forged in blood and desperation. Let them write. As long as the children's hospitals stay open, as long as families don't have to choose between medicine and food, as long as we keep the promise we made." Always. The word hung in the air between them. A vow, a certainty, a future they would build together, one day at a time, one life saved at a time, until mortality and immortality learned to dance instead of war. In the distance, the cathedral of Ashenmore gleamed against the night sky, no longer a monument to fear. Now a symbol of what could be when courage met compassion, when power knelt before principle. Eva closed her eyes, felt the bond pulse with shared purpose. Somewhere in the house, Owen dreamed of dragons that protected instead of hoarded, of a world where being different made you valuable instead of vulnerable. And in that dream, in that hope, lay the truth that neither Nathaniel nor any like him could destroy. That sometimes the person society calls just a waitress is exactly who the world needs. That earned strength matters more than inherited power. That a promise made is a debt paid in full. And that love, for family, for justice, for the possibility of better, is the most powerful force in any kingdom. Eva opened her eyes, copper gold blazing against the dark. "Ready for tomorrow?" Thaddeus asked. "Always," she said. Together they stood watch over a world that was learning, slowly, painfully, beautifully, to be better. And in the morning, when the sun rose on the new covenant, they would be there to greet it, mortal and immortal, bound by blood and choice, forever.